So, Enos, why is it that, like, what do you know about Gunpla? What do you know about me?
Okay, so everything I know about Gunpla is through you, basically, because you were the first person I met who did Gunpla. I'd heard of Gunpla before, vaguely, because again, if you watch Gundam, you've heard of Gunpla. That's just, you can't escape it, it's everywhere. But, I didn't know anything technical about it. I didn't know that there were different grades. I didn't know that, they sold anything except for, like, you know, the big showy Gundams that were the main stars of the various series in the franchise. My experience with Gunpla was practically non-existent. I met you through a couple of other people that we knew, and we basically nerded out over a lot of other things, but Gundam was the big thing we nerded out. That was basically during our first, like, conversations together, we nerded out over Gundam Wing, because we were both Gundam Wing fans. Like, it's not like it's not like I think Gundam Wing is, like, a perfect Gundam series.
No.
It's got
flaws, writing issues, characterization, the fact that half the writers left right in the middle.
Yeah, and I was even frustrated with it watching it the first time through, and I wasn't even, like, that old. Like, I was still, like, a preteen when I was watching it on Toonami, like most Americans did.
Yeah, because you were 10, and I was about 5, 6 in 2000.
Yeah, something like that. And, so, like, even back then, I could tell, like, that there were flaws in this show. Those flaws only became more glaring, but it didn't undercut my love for the actual series. I still love the series, it's just that it's got its things. But one thing I always did love was the design of the Gundams. It's just, those designs just stick in your head.
Wing, Epion, Shenlong, Ultron, Death Scythe, Tolgeese.
Yeah, you don't forget those Gundams, and, like, you compare every Gundam you see after that to those.
For better or worse.
Yeah, especially if you grew up in that time period and you were watching Toonami. It's not just that those Gundams were particularly well designed, it's also that for a lot of kids, those were the first Gundams you ever saw. So, it hits different.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of, for me, nostalgia. I love the character designs. A lot of my close friends know I love, like, don't get me wrong, I love anime, old and new, but I still hold a fondness for that old anime, especially 90s. 90s traditional hand-drawn cell animation holds a special place in my heart. There's just so much detail, color grading that I was very off-putted by, like, when Gundam Seed came out, when everything was transitioning to digital. I didn't come back to anime for a few years until everything started to go HD, because that's when I felt, obviously there were certain exceptions like Full Metal Alchemist and Wolf's Rain, but there was a lack of style that didn't really come back until anime went HD. That,
yeah, unfortunately.
I felt like that transition lost because everything looked the same.
Yeah, but, like, also to be fair, it wasn't just digitization that caused problems with, like, the feel of watching anime. It wasn't just that digitization was new and they hadn't, like, worked out the kinks and sort of streamlined the process. It was also that Gundam Seed was intensely flawed in the way that it drew characters.
Everyone looks the same except eye color and hair!
Yeah, let's not pretend that that wasn't a thing. Like, literally, if you covered up everything but the face on every single character and grayscaled it so you couldn't tell the eye color, you couldn't tell characters apart.
No.
And granted, there are a lot of anime like that, but there's just something so unappealing about the Gundam Seed character designs. I think it's something to do with the eyes, how they have, like, that jagged border on the top part of them. It just doesn't look right. It's not even like a uncanny valley thing. It's just a this is drawn shittily thing, where it's like you can't get any sort of, like, you can't get a good beat on what people are feeling unless you just close your eyes and listen to the voice acting. Which, by the way, the voice acting on both the dub and sub on Gundam Seed were pretty good, I thought. It was one of the few technical things about the series that I thought really worked.
Yeah, the voice acting for 2000s was pretty straightforward, though a lot of peers will say go with the Japanese version. Don't even get me started with the issues with Seed Destiny.
Yeah, but like
thing.
even a woodenly acted English subbed episode of any anime, you can tell when the acting is wooden after you've been watching subbed for so long. Like you might not have the same experience as like a native speaker, of course, but you can sort of tell when the acting is like either wooden or lackluster. But in Gundam Seed, there's solid acting on both sides of the fence, especially when you consider the time period when this was being dubbed. At that time, dubbing was getting better, but let's be honest, it still kind of sucked. Yeah, it was not good.
Ocean Group got so much hell, but it's so funny now because now that, I don't know if you know, but Gundam Seed and Seed Destiny, their HD remasters are coming to Blu-ray this fall. And it was like a stunning announcement that was made because the Blu-rays got announced like late 2019, early 2020, but then everything got forgotten because of the C virus. We can't actually say the whole thing because
the beer situation.
But one of the biggest announcements that kind of took everyone back was the fact that they're replacing the entire dub. They're redubbing it, and
waste of time. The dubbing is fine. That's not the reason why people hated the show.
Well, the problem is that with the HD remasters, they added new scenes.
Yeah, I know, but that doesn't fix it.
So, and I think it was like a combination of the fact that they added new scenes and logistically it wasn't feasible to get Ocean Group to redub those brand new scenes.
Yeah, no, it had been too long. What you would have to do is just get a completely new voice cast or like just take what you can get. And honestly, I just want to know why you would bother. Like, it's a flawed story. It was panned. Like, no one looks back on it without realizing they had nostalgia blinders on. Just like, the only good, like, nice reviews I've ever heard for Gundam Seed has been like, Mech design, there was a lot of potential. It could have gone a lot of places, but then they focused on like the fucking wrong thing. Like, here's the thing. I don't think melodrama is bad in story writing, but you have to use it right. And when you just use it wrong, it either becomes a meme or it becomes boring. And unfortunately in Gundam Seed, it didn't get memeable. It got boring.
And played out.
Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up with, we both have nostalgia, Wing, G, Seed, Double O. Also, we gotta give love to the UC guys out there who grew up with OG, Zeta, War in the Pocket, Stardust Memory, and
the
of
old
course
Taku who were the vanguard who helped bring Gundam in.
And of course, Char's Counterattack.
Yep.
But okay, what about recent Gundams? Because we did watch IBL, at least the first season.
Yeah.
And didn't I think you watched season 2 by yourself?
I moved away from Gundam for a long time because of Seed, which is why, again, I have criticisms of it. But watching IBO and rewatching some of the older series, I can definitely see why people were reluctant to like pull away from Gundam, especially people who had been with the franchise for longer. But the thing about it is, like, newer Gundam, especially the like last 10 years, seems to like be hit or miss. Where there are some shows that are just like really do things well, and other shows where it's just like it's kind of like something will be critically wrong. If it's not the mech design, then it'll be the story writing. If it's not the story writing, it'll be the character design or the character writing. Like, something goes critically wrong that just ruins my enjoyment. And either that's just me being picky as hell, or that's just like an inherent problem with the franchise nowadays. Like, because something that I've heard people say is that Gundam is kind of going through like franchise rot, kind of like some
franchise
shows.
fatigue.
Yeah, franchise fatigue, yeah. Like, where it's like you just are so tired of producing the same property over and over again that you just don't want to do it anymore, and because you don't want to do it anymore, you can't be creative like you used to be. Just like, I think that's become true of the Gundam series. I honestly think that Iron-Blooded Orphan does exemplify some of the problems. And I've discussed this with Reggie before. Like, one of the biggest problems I have with Iron-Blooded Orphans is that the art style creates such dissonance with the story that it just brings me out of it. Like, I can't get immersed in the story because of the way the characters are drawn. I can't, like, the story beats, like, the dark shit that happens, and I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler-free because I don't want, like, people to watch this and be spoilered.
Dude, the series is, like, 6 years old.
Yeah, but people are always coming into franchises, like, without any sort of knowledge of them. People can always be new to a franchise, and who knows, people watching, like, someone could watch this because, like, I don't know, their cousin sent it to them, but they don't know anything about Gundam or Gunpla, and they end up watching this and get spoiled on it. So I don't want to do that. So basically, without spoiling anything, though I know most of you are already fans in now, there is a lot of body horror in it, or at least what would count as body horror. And, you know, with the way that Mikazuki is drawn, the main character, one of the main characters, it doesn't pair with a body horror theme. I feel like that could have worked if the art style used was, like, you know, less big moe eyes, less, like, what do you call it? Like, you know, spiky, like, exaggerated hair that you see in shonen anime. Like,
if he had a less shonen hero-esque design.
Yeah, and it's not even like the shonen heroes, which are drawn with a seinen feel, if you know what seinen is in genre, but, like, it's...
May you explain it to the folks back home?
So seinen is sort of like, I'm not an expert by any means, but seinen is kind of like a genre that is more adult. If, I actually can't remember the Japanese artist who's famous for this, but he's a mangaka who's like, oh yeah, Junji Ito. He's famous for writing in this genre, and he's famous for writing horror seinen, specifically. You guys probably have heard of him before. But, like, it's not drawn in a style that would appeal to a seinen genre audience. It's specifically shonen style. Like, when I look at Mikazuki, he could probably fit into places like Black Clover, even. Like, Fairy Tail, or
ReZero.
One Piece, or... No, not ReZero. ReZero is drawn a little differently than that. But, like, anyone who has experience with reading a lot of shonen manga will know what I'm talking about. The style of the eyes, the style of the hair, and it's not just Mikazuki, it's several other characters in the show. And when you're dealing with issues such as the creation of child soldiers, slavery that's not explicitly called slavery but basically is, body horror, stuff like that. If you're trying to treat it seriously, you don't want a shonen style art style, because that's going to create a lot of fucking dissonance between what you're seeing and what's being discussed and how it's being dealt with, because they don't handle it like a, oh shit, that's messed up, we just gotta deal with this now kind of way. It's more of a, we have to seriously discuss this and see its repercussions kind of way. And
probably the greatest example was when Biscuit died.
Yeah.
It was like they halted for a whole episode to deal with it, and we got to see that scene that really developed and really got to see the codependency between Mika and Orga.
Yeah, and the thing that, like, brought me out of that moment was just, like, with the way they're drawn, it just comes across as either comical, which you don't want, because it's not a tragic comedy. It's not written that way. Or I just can't take it seriously, which is sad because it's a serious topic, and I otherwise really do like the storyline of Iron-Blooded Orphans. I think though, because they were still writing within the Gundam franchise, I think that maybe they wanted to tackle a different topic. Maybe they wanted to cover something else, because otherwise, why pick that art style? It just doesn't make sense to me. And granted, I'm not one to watch interviews much, so there's probably been someone from, like, the art design staff who has discussed this, but I just think it was a mistake.
From a production standpoint, I could say that the team specifically in Sunrise that made the actual animation, it was a composite of team members that did 00 and Bill Fighters. Like, you've seen the art style for 00, and I think you've seen some of the art style for Bill Fighters. It fits more along the lines of Bill Fighters.
Yeah, it does fit, because that was a completely different story.
Yeah, it's a spin-off.
Yeah, and it's not just a spin-off, but remember the storyline for Build Fighters.
People building Gunpla model kits in order to fight each other in virtual shonen-ass tournaments.
There's no real lives on the line. There's no war going on. Yeah, it gets fucking intense, but that's Gundam for you. But
whenever they try to pull out the Gundam tropes, it's for laughs.
Yeah, it's comedy-based. Even in Double O, it works. But something as serious as Iron-Blooded Orphans needed an art style that was closer to, like, Gundam Wing or 8th MS Team. Something that looked a little bit more like... A little
mature?
Not really more mature, just a little less directed towards a child audience, because those art styles, like the shonen style, the shoujo style, those are all directed towards, like, teenagers and preteens. That's why they're drawn that way, with exaggeration, with, like, the big eyes and everything else. It's to attract young people. Seinen style is to attract adults. When you're dealing with really adult topics, which I fucking hope that no one who is really young, like a preteen, watched Iron-Blooded Orphans.
I mean, it did. I remember when the first season was airing on Crunchyroll, before it got the dub, so it was like airing concurrently with TV. It did get a TVMA rating for Crunchyroll.
Yeah, but like I still hope, like, because preteens will fucking lie on the internet. Of course they do. I did. Everyone I knew did. No one was truthful about their age on the internet. Let's be real. So like, I'm sure that some did watch it, but like the reason why I hope they didn't is because it doesn't tackle the issue seriously. It tackles the issue kind of like flippantly in a lot of places, and in a way that's like, it's not a thing, like, it's like what I say about writing conventions, using horrible like events in writing conventions. If you can use something other than murder, don't use murder. If you can use something other than war, don't use war.
If you can use anything other than rape, don't use rape.
That was the one I was about to get to. But yeah, basically. And the fact of the matter is, in a lot of ways, I feel like Iron-Blooded Orphans could have used anything but child soldiers and still have hit the same way. It felt unnecessary. Like, everyone could have been 18 or over, and it would have hit the same way.
But the whole thing was dealing with child soldiers.
And I think the reason I couldn't take it seriously was precisely because of the way they were drawn.
Because it was supposed to have like the same feels of 8th MS Team. That's what it was trying to go for, and I got it.
Yeah, I did.
Especially in season 2, it got really dark.
Yeah, season 2 I haven't seen yet, so I'm not sure about that. But even from season 1, it's very hard to stay immersed in the story. Like, I even had to go back after we watched it the first time, and I had to go back and rewatch it because if I hadn't, like, rewatching it sort of solidified my experiences throughout the storyline. That, like, other than the parts that were boring to me, which is, I don't really concentrate too much on those, but the parts where I was supposed to feel something fell flat precisely because of the way they were drawn. And it's not like I don't like that art style. I've been touched by that before. Like, I've watched storylines with that art style that, like, gutted me. But again, it's all about presentation. Which brings me to the next thing I didn't like about Iron-Blooded Orphans was that I felt the pacing was off. Like, there were parts that moved way too fast, parts that moved way too slow, and then parts that just dragged unnecessarily.
Yeah, like, for me, watching it, I had a lot of fun with it, but I was less in hype. I was like 21, I was still in college, and I don't know, for me, it was just like, brand new Gundam series with some of the most unique Gundam designs we've seen since Double O, especially with Barbatos. I love Barbatos.
Yeah, Barbatos is a really good mech design.
But then I loved the first 3 episodes. It felt nonstop because I was watching it as the series was going on. I was watching it every single week. Like, I would sometimes even skip out on classes to watch it over and over again in the tech room. But
I can't really blame you. I mean, you should have been in class, but, like, you're an adult. Make your own decisions.
Kind of adult, but...
Well, 21 is adult. Like, you can go to war and all that shit.
Hey, I graduated college with a 3.1 GPA. And I was a theater kid. But for me, when it came to IBO, I loved the first season. Second season gets a lot of flack because they felt like the show went in a completely different direction. But if we're just talking season 1 alone, the only episodes that really kind of struggled with me was, I forget her name, but she was like the commanding fleet of Gallarhorn.
Oh, God, I know.
The one with the funny eyebrows.
That was fun, though.
She was fun, but she
got garbage scenes, though.
She loved McGillis, and McGillis was using her as a pawn for his scheme.
And it just, like, the entire time watching her, I was like, you as dumb as your eyebrows.
But then you knew that Galio liked her too, but Galio was kind of invisible to her because they were all childhood friends.
Yeah, and it's that whole love triangle bullshit that needs to fucking die.
And then finally, Galio and McGillis have their epic fight, and it was just, it was a wash. It was just, Galio got wrecked in his Kimurus because basically, McGillis has this air of importance because basically McGillis starts out as a Char clone that becomes a Trey's clone.
Yeah. I remember you explaining that to me, and I was like, what?
Yes!
It's like, it's mostly because, like, as fascinating as I find Trey's and Char as characters, especially as antagonists, write something else! Mm-hmm. It's like, no, just quit writing the same characters. It's not good. And if you can't quit writing the same characters, end the franchise.
Well, I don't know. When it comes to me and Gundam at this point, I love it, but I want to see something different. But since that it's been 4 years since IBO finished. We haven't gotten a new Gundam series. I mean, UC's getting adaptations of Hathaway and Thunderbolt, so they're getting add-ons for the main timeline. But when it comes to AU, we haven't gotten anything in 4 years outside of Bill Fighters, and I'm just wondering, what's the next move? It kind of feels like, in some ways, the fandom is kind of on pause. Outside of Hathaway, I haven't really seen a lot of...
Like on the back burner or something. I think that honestly, they just need to stop for at least 10 years or permanently, because at this rate, it's just burnout on top of burnout.
Well, like I told you about those reports that Bandai, at least internally, is like their next 10-year plan is to prepare for a future without Gundam. Not that they're going to stop, but they realize even this cow is getting milk, because it's like...
Even this cow has like no milk. This cow has almost no milk in it. Like it's dying. It just is.
Like, just to take it back to model kits, it's like there's a Gunpla shortage right now in Japan and all over the world, and it's like, how many times can we get different versions of Astrays and Unicorns and Wing Zeros and RX-78s.
Like, you mentioned that was just like repeating the like 4 or 5 builds like over and over and just variations of them, and it's just like, that's depressing for any fucking franchise. It's like, when you put like let's take a franchise with mechs that's different from Gundam, like Transformers. You can't just base the entire Transformers line on Optimus Prime.
No.
That's not going to work. You need all of the other Transformers. Like,
you need Megatron, you need Starscream, you need Bumblebee.
Otherwise, it's boring. So, like, just having a couple Gundams and, like, reproducing them over and over, just, like, variations of them, even if the skeleton is completely different, even if the variations are nice to look at, it's not practical in the long term. And I think that they're just tuckered out. They just, like, which was the Gundam one we started watching but never finished? I think it was Zeta.
X? Yeah, it was X.
No, I don't think it's X that I'm thinking of. It's the one which has, like, these really bulky designs.
Bulky designs. No, it wasn't Zeta. We saw X, we saw G, we saw Wing.
Well, we watched like 2 or 3 episodes of it.
You sure it wasn't X?
It wasn't X, because X is older.
X is 96.
Older. I'm talking newer.
Recently.
Not recently. It was a long time ago. You might not remember. I think it was like starting with a Z or something like that.
Then it had to be Zeta.
Yeah, it had to be Zeta. Like, if you look at the designs for Zeta, all the Gundams like look really bulky.
Even though there aren't that many.
Yeah, they look like they're on steroids. Like, honestly, but when you get that problem, when all of your Gundams look same, that means you're running out of ideas. Either you're working with a medium or creating something that you're just not suited to, or you're out of ideas and you need to let it rest for a while and maybe come back to it, maybe not. Or you just need new blood to come in and do something new with the series.
Well, I thought Barbatos was like an amazing kind of thing, because the thing about the Gundams and IBO, they all essentially have the same frame. It's the armor and the weaponry that makes it.
No, I remember.
Gundam.
Oh, I remember. Believe me, like. But the thing is, again, with IBO, I think it exemplifies the fact that whoever's doing the story writing or the art design, or maybe the combination, maybe they just need to stop and focus on a different genre entirely. Maybe they shouldn't do mecha anime for a while. Maybe they should, like, I don't know, if you're doing IBO, maybe go into shonen. Maybe the story writers, because like I've read stories like that. Maybe they need to go into like writing war dramas.
Like what? Like Full Metal Panic?
Yeah, something like that. That could work for them. But it's like, I feel like they put like a bunch of random ingredients into a pot, aka random like creators, and that's how IBO came out. So they put in like a bunch of shonen artists, a bunch of war drama writers, and then really amazing mecha artists, and just like mixed it all into a pot, and it just didn't come out looking nice.
I appreciate it for what it is. It's just, like I said, everything kind of feels on pause. They're working towards the live action movie. They want to, because Ready Player One did really well and the RX-78 had a cameo. They want to try to give a Gundam movie another try.
Oof.
You know, try to redeem themselves, cleanse the sins of G Savior.
Cleanse also the sins of the Transformer movies.
Hey, Bumblebee wasn't that bad.
Yeah, but like, okay, just for its time, it was ambitious. Technology being what it was,
the first movie I still love.
But like, here's the thing. The Transformers robots are really hard for me to look at because there's so many moving parts.
Yeah, I think, like they said, Optimus Prime's character model had about 10,000 parts to his character model.
Yeah, and that's a problem with most of those parts are visible because it's too busy for your eyes. You can't focus. You don't know where to look at on his, like, body. You don't pay attention to his eyes. You don't pay attention to his face. And the thing about the Transformers is that they were always humanized because even as unnatural as their faces always looked in terms of comparing them to humans, they had identifiable human features. Eyes, a face, like...
Nose.
Like, some of them a nose. Like, of course not mouths on most of them, but like... That was taken away by the movie. Because even if they had mouths, they looked like so fucking unnatural you wouldn't even call that a mouth.
Oh god, Optimus Prime's mouth.
Oh no.
They did give him like the visor thing as an option when
like
he's not
mask,
in combat.
Yeah, leaving the mask on, please just leave the fucking mask on because it just doesn't look good otherwise. Like, and even the eyes were dehumanized. Like, they don't look human. They don't look humane. They don't
just
look like they have
optic
a soul.
sensors.
Yeah, all they look like is like robot eyes. And I know Transformers are robots, but come on. There's a reason why we sympathize with these characters. They look a little human. If they don't look human at all, we're just gonna be like, eh.
And now they're about to do a Beast Wars movie.
That could be good, but it can also be trash.
Well, Michael Bay isn't involved anymore.
Yeah, but still, like, it's like one of those things, you know. Hollywood and movies like that nowadays are very hit or miss. They're either complete garbage fire and they never should have been made, or they're actually decent and they're pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, you're not wrong with that.